and not the right shades of the right color can make something look very, very dated and out of place. So instantly you're at a disadvantage. On the next slide, you can see here makeup's taken a little extreme, but in this case it was, I think it kind of complements the theme. You can see the hair color is very different. The girls who are you know, very dark skinned were made even darker by, you know, pasting on this very heavy dark foundation, accentuated with color. This was from a collection that we call Afrique, and I love doing it because it broke down the boundaries of what most people would do with Afro, you know, Caribbean hair. I just wanted to celebrate it and use the texture as really the key thing to what I was doing.
Wow, these are some of my favorite images in the presentation. I absolutely love them.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, the thing is, it leads us into our next thing. So we kind of talked about a lot of things, but now you've kind of had all this idea. You've done all this chatting, and you've got all these ideas. But I find the hardest thing is putting it into action. So here are some ways that I think will help you. And it kind of goes back to that question which came about budget and how much it will cost to do a photo shoot and everything. So, you know, the great thing is when I first started doing editorial, we didn't have the electronic media and facilities that we have today. So here we have Facebook. Everybody's familiar with Facebook. Put your name on there, put your philosophy in there, put your salon, put everything you need to know about it, and tie yourself into people that are interested in doing photographic sessions. Intercoiffure is another great one. They have lots of different forms of education that goes on. There are also agents that you'll find in every area known as modeling agents, talent agents, and so forth. And what you'll find is they'll represent stylists, makeup artists. You may not be represented by them, but if you call every agent, they have a list of people that basically they will use if they find they get an overflow of work. Stylist 411 is another great one. You know, all of these are great ways of networking. Network, network, network. Hairbrained is another great one. But at the end of the day, what I do is I put out feelers. And what I do is I go through all of the colleges that are in my local area. I go through all of the photographers. I Google this. I go California looking for a fashion photographer, looking for a whatever photographer. Once you've done that, then you can start finding a few people that you can hook up with and start to get to work. Here's a storyboard of some ideas that I play around with them. Some are silly. Some of them materialize, some of them never make it to the wall, an image at the end of the day. But to me, it's about freeing your spirit and keeping your identity to what truly you're all about. And as long as you've got a great-looking model and everything looks beautiful, whether it's strong, whether it's commercial, whether it's avant-garde, then to me that is what makes the great image. When we talk about models, this is a really key thing. People say to me, where do you get your models from? I'd like to kind of, if you look at these next series of 7 slides, it's actually the same model with a series of wigs on her hair. There's number 1, flicking through 2, and you get all of these looks out of this one model, just simply by rearranging. Here's something that's a little bit more classical, a little bit more textured, and then something a little bit more messy. They don't have any commercial value. They have a theme of a little bit of artistry, a little bit of fun, and a little bit more editorial rather than a typical perfect hairstyle that might walk out of a hair salon. To me, there are different hair types. Hair salon work, education, which is hairstyles for education to stimulate and motivate and be creative with what you're projecting. Then you've got editorial hair, and then you've got very, very simplistic natural hair. So to me, those are all different things. When you're looking at your models, you might go to a model agency, you might not. Not every girl who is a pretty girl or guy who is photogenic is with a model agency. I find I track a lot of people off the streets, or I'll go to Facebook, or I'll go to the my websites that will basically allow me to track them down. But when you're going to a model agency, you've got to be very aware that most models will not cut and color their hair unless they get paid a lot of money, because it's a make or break. If they cut and color their hair and it doesn't work right for them in their career, it's a bad decision. But they won't know that until it happens. And you'll find that's often what a lot of models will go through. They'll have their hair cut by accident, or they might get it cut and colored for a big, big job. So when you go to a model agency, they're very specific about your usage rights, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and keep everything professional, because legally you're obligated, and you'll sign an agreement that will allow you to use the images typically for 1 year, and for a certain amount of money, and they'll class it as maybe trade magazine versus consumer magazine versus advertising, which I'll discuss a little bit more later in the PowerPoint. So just be very honest and open. And what I used to do when I owned a salon, as a lot of big salons do, hook yourself into a modeling agency and start doing the model's hair for free. And then you start building a bank of models that you can then start shooting without them being charged. You don't get charged for it, but you simply give them a haircut and a color every now and then as a service. And it's a great advertisement for your salon. So keep those as your house models. They're separate. Even some of your clients, take a picture of them on your regular camera. It doesn't need to be anything expensive. And you'll be able to see if somebody's into having their picture taken. But I often find a lot of my greater models have not actually been with a model agency and have not been professional. So where there's a will, there's always a way.
Now, that sort of sparks a question for me, Damien. Do you find that your chemistry with a model is going to be part of your selection process? Because it seems like this is, you know, the entire photo shoot process really requires a lot of that teamwork. So do you ever sort of choose someone more based on your chemistry with them, or is that a factor?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, you can have the most amazing, you know, girl or guy or whatever you want to go for, but if their chemistry and their energy and their ability to communicate, whether it's verbally or just the general spirit of who they're about, doesn't connect, I would never book them. No, because often 9 times out of 10 it'll end up as being that kind of result. So you've got to have a connection with that person. They've got to want to be photographed. They've got to be into what you want them to do. Otherwise, it's just adding salt into the wounds, and I would never book them. So connection is really, really important. Here we're talking about staying current, and really this is what I find is something that one needs to stay current, but you need to allow yourself time to stay current. So it's great being busy, but you can be so busy, like I sometimes am, that I can't see the woods for the trees, and I never have time for myself. So staying current is being inspired by many things around you, and this is just a little board that shows, you know, lots of different things. And I can be inspired, you know, hanging out with people and my friends. That's what keeps me current. I think you can, you know, have a particular kind of look and a feel when you kind of comes to staying current. Just going to the magazine rack in a bookstore, or walking the streets of a city, or looking at the fashion in a big, large retail center. All of those are what I would say keeps me. You would exercise your body to keep it fit and trim. You need to exercise your mind to stay current and keep it fresh. And when you've been around a little while, like I have, things don't change that much, but they change enough so things look completely different. So that's the most important thing to me, is staying current and staying fresh. Otherwise, you just get old and stale with your clients, with your work, and how you view things. Hairdressing changes every now and then, so keep aware of that. Shooting for NAHA, a great industry photographic competition. And it's, how about this? It simplifies everything, because what it does is it puts down the different categories you can enter. Makeup, fashion, avant-garde, just to name a few. And if you carefully read all of the rules and what the judges are looking for, it's like looking at a storyboard. They're kind of giving you a mini storyboard, so you know what they're kind of looking for and the do's and the don'ts. Keep things simple, keep all the distractions out of the way from objects or clothes, and keep very, very focused on the hair. But I have to say that competition seems to get, you know, harder and harder, and it's getting greater and greater, but I think it's an excellent thing to enter. Here's one of my best friend and my colorist that does everything for me when it kind of comes to color, which is Sue Pemberton. And this was when she won in the color category. But here you can see, I think, a good example in a NAHA category, what the whole overall category would be. To me, it screams color. I can't see it really fitting into any other category. But again, the balance of the little bit of background where you kind of got that red area that's blocks, then you got a little bit of styling that's very, very black. So your eye's naturally going to be drawn to the green and the purple in the hair. So what you've got to do is think of color palettes. You have to think that within your when you're doing your concept board. That's where your stylist and that's where your makeup artists, who are very color driven, can give you the, you know, the other hand on that. They'll say, have you thought about that? So I think here's a great little kind of example of different kind of examples of color. But, you know, that was, you know, relevant 5 years ago.